Welcome once again to India Today's special coverage here in Davos at the World Economic Forum. Now, all eyes in Davos, in a way, are on the US President Donald Trump, but there is another elephant in the room, or should we say dragon in the room, and that's China. What China does or doesn't do in the next 12 months could also determine the trajectory of geoeconomics and geopolitics and affect the world and India too. To get a Beijing perspective, I'm joined by a special guest now. Guan Xin is an anchor with Global Chinese Television Network and also the Chief Business News Editor at CGTN. Appreciate your joining us there, Guan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Just want to get a sense. A lot of attention, as I said, on Donald Trump. How does China see Donald Trump today and what he's done over the last 12 months? The tariff war and then the tariff truce with Beijing. Is he also seen by China as someone who's disrupting the world order?
It's a difficult question. Well, I think China's think that China and the United States having one of the most important relationships in the world, and China as a very responsible, big power. China and the U.S. share the same responsibility to properly handle any kind of frictions or disagreements between China and the United States. Of course, last year we had this tariff war, which indeed created a lot of disruptions for China's economy, but China has managed to navigate through this intense period. And I think the two sides have a truce in October last year, and that is a testament that confrontation between the two largest economies of the world serves neither side's interests. And we are committed to and foster a mutually beneficial relationships with the United States because it is not only in the interest of the two countries, but also it goes a long way to provide more certainty for the global economy and creates more certainties for global businesses and bring stability to the world economy.
It's almost as if you're talking about G2, the US and China. In a sense, you're talking about cooperation more than competition at the moment, right. But the world doesn't see it as that. The world sees China pushing back. Every time the US pushed at China, China's pushed back. You have this huge advantage of rare earth minerals, and you've used and leveraged that to push back. Is that the Chinese approach? We're not going to be bullied by Donald Trump.
I think you're absolutely right. We are not going to be bullied by a country that is using strength to pressure others. But I think China's countermeasures are legitimate and proportionate, and it aims to. It does not aim to escalate the tensions. We are still fully committed to resolving our differences through mutually beneficial consultations, and we have established this working group with the United States and keep the communications going. So I think ultimately China hopes to foster a mutually constructive relationship with the United States.
You know what's fascinating, one, is that China registered a trade surplus of 1.2 trillion in 2025 despite the Trump tariffs. And there is one view or a criticism of sort of China that China is using low-cost exports to dump them across the world to, in a way, transform the way it negotiates with other countries. Is that how China sees its future? If America engages in these tariff wars, China will use the opportunity to strike deals with other countries, including India, to China's advantage through low-cost exports.
Thank you for the question. Actually, a trade surplus is not the policy objective of China. China is committed to pursue balanced trade with our major trading partners.
But that's not happening. I mean, the reality is that you've got huge trade surpluses with large parts of the world, including India.
Yeah. That is unexpected last year because due to the tariff war, we didn't expect such robust performance of China's foreign trade sector. But I think there is a combination of factors at play here. For example, China's continued investment in its manufacturing, especially high-end manufacturing capabilities and innovation-driven strategies are really, increase the competitive edge about China's export sector. There are some stereotype about China's products being cheap, but actually, China is not the source of those low-end manufacturing products. Many companies have moved these supply chains outside of China because of China's rising labor costs. But China has advantages in more skilled labor, more integrated supply chain system, and an ecosystem of high-end manufacturing. And as we have the talent dividend, we have the world's largest number of engineers, and that has really contributed to the competitiveness of China's export sector. But I have to stress that China also introduced a lot of measures to expand its imports with its trading partners. China's imports remains the world's second largest for 17 consecutive years, and China is actively expanding domestic demand, and China is hosting the China International Import Expo, and we are fully confident our consumer market, the expanding middle-income consumers will create more opportunities for global businesses, and import will continue to grow.
So you're saying China is ready to open itself up to the world, because one of the interesting aspects of this is while you have this huge trade surplus, while China becomes a dominant player in supply link chains, in particular in manufacturing, innovation, information technology, AI. At the same time, Chinese domestic demand has been tepid, consumer spending has been tepid, you still have a property crisis, your population has slowed down, you've got a lot of challenges at home. Isn't that true? Is there a recognition of that China has now, in a sense, got to almost reboot itself for the next, if it has to move forward and grow faster?
You're absolutely correct about your observation about Chinese economy. Indeed, we're having some structural issues about the economy, and actually it's very difficult to navigate China's economy, which is now at a huge size compared to like a decade ago. However, we have fully recognized these challenges, like we are actively expanding our domestic demand, and we're trying to invest in human capital and increase the household incomes, create more social security net for them. These measures are aiming at long-term rebalancing of China's economy, and that can foster sustainable growth momentum going forward. Meanwhile, you mentioned those new growth areas. Indeed, we're investing heavily on green industries, the artificial intelligence sectors, and we hope these areas will generate more growth avenues for the economy. So as the country is overcoming the so-called middle-income trap.
It's interesting you mentioned at the outset that you don't see Donald Trump in the United States as an adversary. How do you see India? The two big powers in a way of the region, the relationship between the two countries has been blow hot, blow cold over the years. We've had border disputes with China. How do you see it from Beijing? How do you see New Delhi? Do you see India as a partner with alliances possibly like BRICS getting strengthened over the next decade?
I think definitely India is a very important partner of China. We have to meet. There are some, frictions or even some disputes. It is very normal because we're now one of the major economies in the world. However, I think the common interest between our nations far exceeded those disagreements, and we will continue to, we're making efforts to continue to narrow the list of, these conflicting issues. I think the shared interest between China and India are manifested in, we are important growth drivers of the world. We have combinedly we have 1/3 of the global population, and we are important growth drivers to the region's economy. And we are also the largest developing countries, and we're the anchors of the global south. So working together, we can also improve the voice in global governance and to reflect more of emerging markets and developing economies.
But do you see us as a competitor? Do you see India as a competitor with China, particularly in the future, let's say for supply chains? Or does China believe that it's reached a stage where India doesn't necessarily matter to the larger Chinese strategic objectives?
Of course, there will be competition, in economic theories, competitions are mostly healthy, and I think the point is we need to manage these healthy competitions instead of, escalating tensions or even politicalizing trade issues. I don't mean we're politicalizing, I mean for the world trade. It is in the interest of the nations to foster healthy competition instead of politicalize trade issues.
In conclusion, and this is from a New Delhi perspective, we look at China and we look at the way your economy has expanded over the last 3 decades. Some believe that it's because you are an authoritarian regime. The communist regime can do what other countries cannot. You can push ahead because there are no roadblocks, there are no checks and balances. But if I were to ask you, what explains the Chinese success story? What is it that makes China, according to you, such a successful powerhouse of the 21st century?
Well, it's a very difficult question, but thank you very much for that. It's a big complimentary of China's achievements in the past. I think
I mentioned both. I mentioned the fact that from an Indian perspective, there are those who will say China's authoritarianism, and the fact that you can push ahead with
different ideologies. I totally understand.
Yeah. So what's the success? What is that secret sauce that makes China tick?
We Chinese actually think we are a very vibrant democracy. If you go to China and go to the 2 sessions at the beginning of this year, you can see thousands of experts gathered in Beijing, and they have all kinds of meetings, and they will submit their proposals about how to improve the economic governance and policies through their year-long work. Some of them are really deep-rooted in the rural areas, and they really see how China's economic policies work in rural areas, and they bring their wisdom and their contributions, and they sit together and discuss China's economic priorities. And this unity and this planning in advance and implementation really give us this long-term vision going forward. I think it is very, very unique in the world because sometimes you have the swings in politics, and that's does not align with China's value, because we're really a hard-working nation, and with a strong determination. So we made great changes in our economy in the past decades, and I think that is how we got here, and we'll keep going.
And so interesting, whatever Donald Trump does, many believe that actually China is a beneficiary. If you've got Russia, if you've got Europe and America clashing, if you've got America in a way alienating some of its traditional allies, China becomes the beneficiary. All kinds of countries are now coming to China to do business with China, and China's business is business. Am I correct?
We welcome international, investors.
You've signed deals with Canada. You're signing deals with more and more countries. So China is focused, in a way, of growing its influence across the world.
I think they come to China to sign deals for a reason, and that is openness and dialogue is still, the way forward. It has underpinned the prosperity of the world economy in the past decades. Right now, there are a lot of talk about fragmentation and de-risking, but the global economy is still deeply, interconnected, and China is constantly committed to, shared development and, mutually beneficial trade relationship. And so I think this value is shared by many countries, including emerging economies, developing economies, even some Western economies like Canada and Europe, as you mentioned. So it's not because China, intentionally, or it's a value, I think, and that is a fundamental of global growth, and it will continue to exist in the future.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, Guan, because you've given us a business perspective of what makes that Chinese economy tick, Donald Trump or no Donald Trump. Good to have you here in conversation in Davos. It takes a Chinese and an Indian journalist to come to Davos to have a civilized conversation like this. So thank you very much for joining me and giving our viewers that viewpoint from Beijing.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Thank you. Our continuing coverage here from Davos on India Today. Voices from across the world. Thanks for watching.